Welcome to Martial Mindset, where we delve into some of the leading minds in business, martial arts, and academia to find out what truly makes success in any field of life. We are the fight coaches who will motivate and inspire you to level up your game, no matter how big or scary your goals may be.
So one of the things, Michael, we're really interested in is martial mindset and in particular resilience and how you develop resilience, basically. So from your experience, how would you say that, obviously your experience is quite substantial and it's real world experience. When we're talking about building resilience to dealing with problems, what would you say would be the number of factors to start looking at that basically for ordinary individuals?
So I think we were just talking about this a little while ago. One of the things that really pushed me into different zones was the martial training. So we're all interested in the martial training, and until I did the martial arts training, I'd had a little bit, over the years, as a kid, working with guys, and then in the SEAL teams. In the SEAL teams, we didn't actually have a specific martial training program until I developed one. And throughout my experiences, I would say like maybe about 12 years of experience in the SEAL teams, combat experience in Panama. I'd had a little bit of experience, JKD stuff, different styles of Kung Fu, karate and stuff like that. But until I really went into the martial training, I didn't really awaken the real, warrior within me. Mm-hmm. And I think that's one of the things that I would say to someone: do some type of martial training, and that martial training will start to awaken things within you, like it did with me.
Michael, when you say that you really went into martial training, what do you mean specifically? Like, what was the difference between your training then and before?
The intensity of it. Like before, it was just like, maybe an hour or two with friends, maybe every other week, or sometimes like when I did a cruise on a ship, we did martial training every day, and that was a little bit better. But until you really get deep into it, and I mean like it becomes part of your reality. Mm-hmm. I did like I was telling you, 10 hours a day for 30 days straight.
Yeah.
And that really pushed me into these zones.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know that the average person would have access to a program like that. But I think if you really want to go into these deep levels, you have to find something that's going to really push you into these different zones. And I think the intensity is something that really, helps a lot. Mm-hmm. If you find a martial art that's extremely intense, very offensive. And I found that the offensive arts are the best. Mm-hmm. The ones that are defensive, maybe that's something you want to start with. Maybe not. I would say, go with the offensive right away.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I mean, how would you say, because I've done a few videos discussing this issue of psychology and training martial arts generally. And one of the things that I've tried to get across to people is that you've got to not only believe what you're doing, but you've got to prepare your mind for combat. So although this is a different type of combat because it's unarmed, it's, obviously civilian based in the street, but quite often when people are training martial arts, and I'm talking about the average person, they sort of go into a martial arts studio, dojo, kun, whatever you want to call it, and they sort of switch off. They go on autopilot and they don't sort of switch on to action. So, one of the things I was trying to explain in a couple of my videos was that you've got to put your mind in a place where you're actually feeling a threat and you're responding accordingly. So you've got to have a little bit sense of anxiety. And I always try to say to people, if you're training it's too comfortable, then maybe you're not preparing yourself for real combat, because at the end of the day, if you're dealing with someone in the street and he's angry, he's shouting, he's screaming in front of your face and he's gesticulating, you're going to have certain sort of emotional responses. And, how would you say that, how would you advise people to deal with those emotional responses from your perspective?
So one of the first things that we teach is, and I teach now in my courses, is how to have the offensive mindset. The offensive mindset has no fear, and there's no defensive thought. Tony Blair has some really good stuff where he talks about the training where he, stops. He wants a stop action. So it kind of like builds something within the mind. It's like I call it the neuron groove. And I don't want to make the neuron groove a super highway in your mind. I want you to be like just a very offensive person. Now, offensive doesn't mean I'm like mean all the time or anything like that. It means that if I need to tap into something, I'm going to tap into it. So overcoming fear is the biggest thing that people can do. And you're talking about putting people into these situations, these combat situations, and that's perfect. So you want to start to train the mind to overcome these things. I do security in a casino, and I deal with people all the time that are, very aggressive. And I mean, people right up in my face, pushing on me.
They're brave.
Oh, yeah.
They're brave.
Yeah, well, they're usually intoxicated, so they're
they're either brave or really, really stupid.
Very stupid.
Yeah. So it's kind of good training for me to overcome people being in your face and stuff like that, and just staying calm. So having that warrior calm, there's no fear. We've all trained and we know what to spot as far as like aggressive patterns with the people that are wanting to, maybe strike us or something like that. So I'm looking for that. I'm looking, my wide angle vision. I'm just very calm. I breathe, but you got to breathe. And all these things open up the intuitive centers. So the wide angle vision, the calmness, and the breath, the breath, like the Buddhist, all these different, styles, yoga styles, stuff like that. Learning how to breathe, and if you're doing all that in a combat situation, you're probably going to prevail 99% of the time.
But pre that, because we had another guest on our podcast and we were talking about switches, the emotional switch of the action switch. And so pre the confrontation situation, basically, I mean, I think you have to train to do that. And it's very different in the military compared to civilians, because you can obviously immerse yourself completely into an environment where you are trained to switch on and switch off. But for the ordinary individual that comes to a martial arts studio maybe 2-3 times a week, I mean, how would you advise them to develop a switch, basically, where they can switch and engage, well, as I said, engage a threat or to engage a situation that they need to quite quickly? I mean, what would you say? I mean, because this is pre, the requirement to breathe and clear your mind and develop it and so on.
Exactly. I think the biggest thing that I would say for people to come in is to learn how to overcome these emotions, to notice them as soon as they start to arise. And I think this is one of the strongest things that martial training teaches, to learn how to overcome these fears, these emotional challenges. And I would have people that as SEALs that would go through my program that still had these fears, deeply, deeply ingrained, and learning how to push them into those positions where they had to overcome those fears was challenging.
How do you push people in that sense where they need to overcome those fears?
So it starts out, a one-on-one type situation. As an instructor, I just watch for the triggers, and then I push people into those situations. So that's the beauty of having a really good instructor, I believe, someone that can spot these triggers within someone or in a group. And I can teach, individual to a quick high level, or I can take, and like I said, 27 people at a time and train them and see where the triggers are in each one of these people.
Can I just jump in and ask you? So when you say triggers, are you talking about psychological weaknesses potentially? So I mean, could you give us an example? I mean, what would it be? The way someone responds to a certain situation, the way they behave, or what would that be?
So it could be from the beginning. We start with verbal. So it could be a verbal, confrontation where you're trying to get control of a situation and someone doesn't want to go with it. I mean, police, deal with this all the time. So it's their verbal trigger. So I want to find, what it is within you that causes you to click, go angry.
Right.
So anger or all these negative emotions. So you find where the negative emotions are that trigger people, and you help them overcome that. So if I say that, you know, for instance, your mother, blah, 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 you know, and that triggers you, it shouldn't trigger you. You know, nothing should trigger you, you know, on a verbal level. So I, like I said, I have people that yell at me and, you know, say ugly things to me all the time. It does not trigger me at all. It's just, they're just words. So you need to understand words and how words affect your physical body. They actually do. So once you find what it is that, boom, that triggers you, you know, emotionally to go into a negative state, because these negative states, these negative emotional states, you know, affect your ability to handle situations, not only in a mental capacity, but also in a physical capacity. So if you're a very offensive person, you know, it doesn't matter what someone says to you or how close they get to you or any of these things, you still will be able to handle your situation. This is where I want to push you. So it starts with the verbal, you know, cues, and then we move to the physical cues, and then we go from there. We just expand. It could be one person that attacks you, and then it's two people, then it's three. So we continually, you know, push the person and find more and more triggers and help them overcome those triggers. So all of us have triggers, you know, we just have to learn what they are. And as you feel these emotions rise within you, then you're like, okay, I'm getting triggered. So I need to, like, not suppress it, but let it go through you. So the fear and stuff like that, people say fear is you know, a gift. I don't think fear is a gift. I've had discussions with people quite often. Fear is negative in any aspect you want to look at it. So you really want to have a negative, you know, aspect within your system, within your thought processes, your neuro-linguistic processes, neurons, you know, neuro-linguistic. So the brain, linguistic words, and the program. So how do words program your brain? So you want to program your brain with the positive things, the thought process that are going to help you overcome situations, not just in a combat situation, but also, like, you know, in a business situation where someone, the same thing, words, you know, saying words to you like, oh, you're doing terrible in your job or whatever. It doesn't trigger you, you know. You learn how it doesn't trigger you. So you start to overcome all these different things that block you.
It's funny because you would normally expect some type of healer, you know, addressing these subjects. But for all the listeners, like, you guys need to go to the video and see Michael. He's huge, right? And seeing, like, this huge guy talking about spirituality and managing your emotions, allowing your emotions to go through you and observing them. It's very, very cool, right? And especially, I love the fact that you mentioned how important breathing is before you do anything, just to take a breath and breathe. You're probably referring to abdominal breathing and just focusing on your center, right? And my students listening to this podcast are freaking out because I tell them this stuff all the time. And
but I mean, the one thing that really, I mean, I think is quite important to get across is that issue of decision making, because what you're saying, Michael, really essentially is these triggers are helping people, whether, I mean, it's a transferable skill, as you just said, Michael. I mean, you look at it in a business environment, you can look at it in a martial arts or a combative situation, but essentially it's decision making. So the fact that you're managing your emotions, if you like, and containing these triggers, it helps you make more effective decisions given the situation. So, you know, I mean, a classic example is you might have a young man who gets really angry, and then, you know, he's triggered, and then all of a sudden he starts to, you know, hit, strike, punch the person, and then just go literally crazy on the other person. That's a bad decision, but it could be an emotional decision. So, you know, I think the key thing that's a transferable skill from the martial art world, you know, and that's really what we're talking about to every other environment, being business being one of them as well, is that if you can control your emotions, then you've got this ability to make effective decisions, and definitely from a work environment, that's something I think's, you know, commendable, really. I mean, one thing to add to it, how do you view, because I know a lot of the more combative systems, and we were talking earlier about the spear system and so on, and I'm sure you do this. How do you guys, because they're very often based on surprise, the training of, because when you go to a martial arts school, a typical martial arts school, when they're learning self-defense, they're learning it in a situation where it doesn't go wrong, it's quite well scripted, and for example, they're told what's going to happen. The person's going to attack you with said punch or right punch, and you're going to maybe block, intercept it, and do this. But I know that a lot of my experiences of working with a lot of combative instructors is that they do a lot of ambush type work, where it's surprise, it's chaotic, they don't know where the attacks are coming from. We were doing an exercise earlier this year where I was getting guys to do burpees, so they were completely exhausted, and then I was giving them very strange scenarios which they couldn't control, because obviously they were A, exhausted, so they couldn't think, and B, all of a sudden they had these variables that were not in their script, basically, and they just had to respond and deal with it. How do you think that type of training is effective in a civilian environment?
Yeah, that's one of the things I think is very important to continually stress. And we would have situations where we'd have the guys training every day for 10 hours a day, 30 days straight. So eventually they get to the point where they're fighting for 3 minutes straight, everyone in the class. So you have 27 guys attacking you at the same time, and these are, big, heavy, hardcore SEALs.
Yeah.
And we eventually get to the point where, it's very slow, very methodical. The guys aren't throwing the punches hard, but as it progresses, over the weeks, they have to wear body armor, because the guys are really punching them hard. So they're attacking. We're doing takeouts, throat, the breaking necks and all kind of crazy stuff, right to that point where he would have broke my neck if he hadn't just pulled it right at the last point. So we're pushing into these zones where it's life or death, so you want to simulate that the best you can. And we do that in Bud's training as well, in the very beginning, like in Hell Week. So these guys are push to the ultimate limit. So any kind of training that does that, I think, is very, very effective. And when I was doing that, it pushed me into different zones where I expanded my consciousness, the wide angle vision. I could take in stuff. I knew where guys were in the room, even though I couldn't see them behind me. So I think pushing like that expands you into these intuitive states. And that's what really awakened me to the intuitive abilities that I was able to go into. So yeah, putting the scenarios where we would do prisoner takeouts or sentry takeouts, prisoner handling, stuff like that. But the prisoner takeout or the sentry takeout, the guy was like you're talking, walking, and they didn't know when the guys were going to come. Eventually, these guys started to know when the guys were coming to get them just before they hit. So we started teaching the guys, you have to go empty mind, because if you focus what you're going to do, it projects. So guys would pick it up. We're starting to push into these crazy zones where people were starting to go beyond the physical. So that's when you push people very, very hard in a physical realm, they start to expand. And I saw it over and over again. I could see when a guy was in the zone. So we talked about the alpha brainwave states a lot. So we tell them, push into the zone, alpha brainwave state, wide angle vision, breathe, and these guys started to do amazing things. All these guys were attacking them. They could handle it. It was wow, he's in the zone. So we want to find these zones in our martial training. We want to push people into these zones. And
how do you inspire your students, and how do you teach them to stay in the zone once they access this? Once they learn to access it at will, how do you teach them to maintain it?
That's good. So there's, just like when you meditate, you learn to meditate, you control your breathing, you get in these nice, comfortable states. You can be in that state when you fight, when people are attacking you like
you
crazy.
Have to be.
Exactly. Otherwise, you won't be able to handle it. You'll be taken out right away. So I can go into these states instantly, but takes time to push people into these states. Okay. Oh, you got it. You got it. You feel it? You know, you can go there anytime. Just do it every time. So once you find it, you start to go there quicker and quicker and quicker. And you can do it with everything in your life. Anytime you feel, you feel tense or whatever, you know, something's happening, you know, maybe your boss is yelling at you, or you know, you have a work schedule. It's like you're stressed. I had these stresses when I worked in the CIA. You know, we had these time schedules we had to meet, and I just started to go into these different zones. I'd be like, I could see what I wanted to accomplish. I saw it in my mind. This is the time I have to be there. This is what I'm going to do. I just saw it, and I just focused on that. So you learn to do that as well. If you have a group of people attacking you all at once, you visualize, okay, I can handle this. And if you think that you're going to not be able to handle it, then absolutely you won't instantly. It'll happen that quick.
So I'm sorry, Mark.
Sorry, I was going to say, so would you say, because, I mean, I was having a conversation with a group the other day, and I was saying, look, you know, in a real confrontation, you don't have time to think. There's no thought process. I mean, the idea is that when you're training, if you've trained properly, then your training will become quite intuitive. Your movement, your ideas, everything, your reactions, what you do is much more intuitive. So you think, because, you know, what most people don't, I think most people don't understand that haven't been in real confrontations, is that it happens so quick. And I have this sort of division between a martial art, a self-defense system, and fighting. I always say there are three different things. And where self-defense is concerned, what I'm learning to deal with is someone that's attacking, or what I'm learning to deal with, what I'm preparing my students for, is that someone who's going to attack them by guile. You know, you're typically looking at a victim of crime, someone that's going to be robbed, someone that's going to be lying in their bed at night and someone climbs through their window at the dead of night in their house, someone who's driving down the road and they suddenly get pulled out of their car or what have you. You know, these types of attacks are very often by ambush or guile, being that the person uses a con to get quite close to you. So you don't have time to think. You just have to deal with the situation quite quickly, which is very different, as I say to most people, to a fight, for example, where you know, I don't know, you go into the UFC or you're doing MMA or what have you. You know, you've got 6 weeks to prepare for that. You know who your opponent is. You can watch tapes of them. You can, you know, that's a very different situation that you're learning to deal with, and that's a distinction what I often say between self-defense and so on. So would you say, and this is what really hits me more, there's much more of an intuitive ability required in a situation where you can't think, such as a self-defense situation, in comparison to, say, a staged, and when I say staged, I don't mean, you know, I mean as an agreed fight, like a boxing match or kickboxing match or what have you.
Not those fake wrestling matches.
WWE style.
Yeah, I think that's awesome that you're even talking about that, because most people don't comprehend that at all. They're taught a certain way. I see this throughout every organization I've ever been, even the SEAL teams. You're taught a certain way, you expect to do it this way, and you don't want to, you know, have anything else, you know, that comes into conflict with the way you've been taught and the way it's supposed to happen. But how often does it not happen that way? It's just like, that's the way life is.
Yeah.
So yeah, having that empty mind, learning to have that empty mind is like the most important thing. I think it's beautiful that you can teach someone. And that's the intuitive states, the empty mind, where you can just take and process information on a level that you normally analytically could not. It's just impossible. Like, you know, 27 people attacking you at once. It's impossible for you to, you know, analytically determine, you know, this guy is going to come at me this way, and I'm going to strike him this way, and I'm going to take his head and do this and push it this way. You can't do it. So you have to be in that empty mind state. And I try and be in that state all the time. And one of the things that I do is just, just calm myself and just try and empty my mind so that there's no thought. And that's kind of like the Buddhists do that a lot too, that, you know, walking the razor's edge. And we used to say that a lot in the SEAL teams, you got to walk the razor's edge, you know. So it's very important to be able to be in those states of consciousness. And
sorry, Michael, do you also think that acceptance is something as well? I mean, for example, if you say to someone, look, you know, someone's going to attack you in the street, they're probably going to hit you, right? It's going to happen, but you're going to deal with the situation and push on, as opposed to teaching someone who never thinks that they're going to ever be hit or touched. And then, I mean, I've seen that. I had a good friend who was a very experienced martial artist. I watched him get into a confrontation, and he got, you know, someone landed a punch on him, and it was sheer shock on his face. It was like, the guy's hit me. That never happened in the gym. All of a sudden, someone's hit me. And obviously, everything just went out the window because he was in just a sheer sort of shock of, actually, this wasn't supposed to happen. So, I mean, I always say to people, look, you know, want for a better word, shit happens, deal with it. You know, nothing goes to plan. And if you accept that nothing goes to plan, you can have that empty mind in terms of dealing with a confrontation, because you accept that it's going to go bad and you're going to deal with it. You're going to prevail, because that's where would you say that's where the intuition or intuitive nature would also extend to? Or might
Yes,
extend?
definitely. So, I mean, we've all got these stories of people that have been in these confrontations where they had, like you said, incredible, you know, background experience, and then something just didn't go right and they just folded. So having the ability to, you know, handle any kind of situation, no matter what it is, and keeping your focus, it takes concentration to be able to do that. You have to do it over and over again. So, you know, I've been in I mean, you can imagine I've been in situations that were unbelievable in combat rack countries, where where people are dying around me all the time, even my best friends. So I just kept that warrior calm, you know, that sense of purpose, a sense of focus, and I was able to prevail. And for many, many years, I think I was in combat situations pretty much most of 10 years, going on 11 years, where I was just day in and day out. I come home for like a few weeks, you know, a month at a time, and then go back, you know, 2 to 3 months, and I come home, you know. So I was just, at first it was like just overwhelming. It's like, you know, weary on the soul, but I just learned how to just like relax through it, like we're talking about, and start to push myself into these different zones, the warrior calm. Mm-hmm. So the combat obviously is going to, like, you know, up the intensity. It's going to, you're going to, you know, find these things much more rapidly than you would if you're just like, you know, going to the gym, working out for, you know, maybe once a week for an hour or two at a time. Mm-hmm. You have to find where you're going to find the intensity. So the multiple days, multiple hours of training really, you know, makes a difference with a good teacher, because I can push someone very very rapidly in a few days time. And I just had this discussion with some guys that were, you know, MMA fighters that have been training for 10 years, and they're like, you're going to get people hurt, you know, doing that. You know, you can't train somebody that quickly. And I'm like, wow, that's amazing, you know. So I used to have that mentality too. You know, I had a few different, you know, martial arts skills that pretty intense. You know, the JKD stuff. I'm like, I got JKD. It's like the best there is. There's nothing else can beat me, you know. And then you know, in a situation where someone did, you know, and so I was like, wow, okay, so I need to, you know, open my mind and realize there's a lot of things that can happen that I'm not trained for. So I have to be able to, you know, handle in a situation. And then once I took that mentality, everything changed. So all those guys that are out there like, my Kung Fu is better than your Kung Fu. I was like, yeah, you got a ways to go. So but it can happen very quickly. Just this video right here, that if guys like that, like if I was used to be that guy, if I saw something like this, I'd be like, wow, I need to change my thought processes. So
probably. Or they're probably just going to say, no, you haven't seen my Kung Fu.
Oh, yeah, my Kung Fu is the best.
My Kung Fu is the best.
And I just laugh, you know, internally I laugh. I'm like, yeah, you're probably right. Yeah. So, but it's sad to see that, but you know, there are a lot of people that have closed minds. So if you don't have the open mind to this kind of information, to this type of thought processes, you're never going to reach your full potential.
Yeah, and I just want to tie in a quick idea between what you said, Mark, and also Michael. I think that ties in very, very well with the right mentality for business, because if you accept that things are not going to go your way and that you are going to fail, then just like, accepting that you might get punched in the face and that all your technique might go out the window because you panic, that will enable you as well to go towards business with an empty mind and with lowering expectations, and just enjoying what you're doing and enjoying the moment, and not being triggered by somebody saying, oh yeah, you know what, I'm not going to take your offer. I'm not going to buy your offer today and stuff like that. You're just going to be calm and you're going to go to the next one.
Well, that builds on the issue of resilience again, doesn't it?
Yes.
I mean, resilience is developed from failure, and it's dealing with what goes wrong, and then essentially rising above that and moving a stage further. Whether you're doing martial arts or whether you're in business or whether you're studying, no matter what you're doing in your life, you've got to expect that sometimes it just doesn't.
You're going to fail.
Yeah,
exactly.
Suffer. And you have to. One of the things, my observation, because look, I've been teaching now for 30 years, and one of the things I've noticed over the time of teaching is that the guys that come into the academy, the talented ones that pick up the information really quickly, are the guys that don't last, the ones that give up. And I've come to the conclusion, and it's the opposite tends to be true. The people that have to go through those failures of getting it wrong, trying harder, coming back, doing it again, getting it wrong, trying harder, or getting punched in the face, or whatever it was, that adversity at that point in time, those are the ones that seem, and this is only anecdotal because I haven't done any studies on this, but anecdotally it seems to be those are the ones that are more resilient, because the ones that acquire the information naturally, the talented ones, they just don't stay.
I was definitely not a talent.
Nor was I.
Yeah, that's exactly what I wanted to ask you. What about you, Michael?
Yeah, those are good points too. I saw this in when I was a BUD/S instructor. When I went through BUD/S training, I was like, oh, I must be Superman, So I had this, high.
Forgive my ignorance. What is BUD/S training?
Okay, BUD/S is basic underwater demolition SEAL training. So it's like the 6-month program where you go through to become a Navy SEAL.
Okay, great.
So I was in the first phase of that, where there's the Hell Week, and the Hell Week was, you can't, no one can train for that. I remember I had some friends that had gone through, and they were telling me, yeah, I could tell you, how amazing it is, but until you experience it, you're never going to know. I was like, yeah, okay, whatever. So I'm like, but I'm going to crush it, because I know this athletic ability. And I was like, oh yeah, I've been training hard. I'm going to be good. And so I got there, and it was like they said, you can't explain it. You can't until you experience it.
Mike,
so when I came back as an instructor, just like you're talking about, I would have guys that came in that were professional athletes. I mean, we had football players, we had baseball players that I'm going to be a SEAL, and they were very successful. We had a lot of these guys come in. And I was like, these guys are going to crush it. They look at them, they're amazing. They were the first to quit, because just like you said, everything had been easy for them. They were naturally gifted athletes that everything came easy for them. And then everyone gets pushed in that Hell Week. And you could see guys like, crumble, like we're talking about, get a punch, and then they're just like, whoa, what is that? I've never experienced that before. And then they're gone. I was like, wow, what is that? So it's an internal thing. So if you have that incredible passion and drive for something, that is what really gets you through the challenges, through all the obstacles that will come in your lifetime.
Let's dive a bit deeper into that. How do you prepare your students for that moment where they feel it, or they start asking themselves, should I just quit? Should I just do something else? Or should I just keep going? How do you prepare people to overcome that?
Well, it's a lot of the physical stuff we do. We push them physically, but unless they really have it within them, I try and motivate them. You got to have the motivation. This is what it's going to be like. It's going to be amazing. You're, level of having to really push yourself. Once you hit that, you have to keep pushing. You have to keep pushing and pushing and pushing, and don't give up, because other people have done this before you. But even all my words of encouragement, you know, we still have a up to 70, 80% attrition rate in buds. So I'm trying to find those people that have that deep internal drive, just the amazing amount of drive that gets you through the unbelievable challenges in life, the ability to overcome, to think through situations internally. So if you can't do it internally, then you won't be able to do it externally. So you can see it happen. Like I said, many guys that had just like incredible, you know, they were incredible physical specimens. I was like, God, this guy's gonna crush it. It's going to be so easy for him, just like I thought, you know, for myself. But then I started to see, even the little guys, you know, the guys that, wow, what is this guy thinking? He's going to make it through this, and they're the guys that push through, because they have the challenges. They've had them throughout their lives, and they know how to overcome challenges. So they keep pushing. Okay, I'm going to stay the course. I'm going to keep pushing through this. I'm going to learn. My body's going to adapt. I'm going to have the right mindset. I'm just going to keep pushing. So that's the way I went in as well. I was like, I would rather die than not be a SEAL. I mean, it sounds hokey, but I really did have that type of mentality.
We know how it is. We'd rather die than do something else as well.
Yeah, exactly. And having that kind of passion for something, I think, is what, you know, manifested in your life. So you're not going to manifest these great business deals, these great, overcome, you know, having the perfect, you know, partner. You're not going to manifest these things in your life if you don't believe that you can do them, one. And then two, if you don't, as the challenges come, if you don't constantly overcome them. It takes work. You have to have the internal drive and motivation to get through and accomplish things in life.
I mean, listening to you, I'm trying to sort of get to the bottom, because, you know, I'm a psychologist, right?
Excellent.
So, and my speciality of, you know, we look at basically how the mind works in extreme circumstances, usually. So, in particular, hostage captivity, hostage survival, basically. So, you know, I'm very big on triggers, as I was speaking earlier. And one of the things I was thinking was that, you know, some advice I was giving someone once was that, you know, when you're dealing with a very difficult situation, you have to remind yourself what you are fighting for. So, you know, because obviously, given especially the extreme nature of special forces training, because it's not just physical, it's psychological as well. You know, how do you, basically my question is, but on the back of the trigger of reminding yourself what you're doing it, because I think it's all very well for our listeners, for us to say to our listeners, you have to remind yourself why you're doing this. You know, you have to get the drive from inside you. But a good trigger is to physically think, I'm doing this because of this or this person, or when times are hard. And as I said, you know, my speciality is looking at how people survive extreme times of captivity. That's part of my research, actually. So in particular, where they're held hostage and they're enduring torture, which is quite typical really of the type of stuff that I look at. So how do I coach someone who's going to be working in a hostile environment that potentially maybe is going to be, you know, they run a risk of being kidnapped, basically? One of the things I would always say is that in certain situations, you have to think, you know what you're doing. I mean, what would your advice be, really?
I've been in like many situations over my life where I was at the point of death for different situations where I was in combat, even in training. I would say that the training that I went through was even more intense than combat. When I was literally in combat, I thought this is pretty easy compared to what I've been through. So I'll give you one example, waterboarding. So I was actually in a prisoner of war camp situation where, you know, basically starved for like a week or so, constantly beaten. And then I could see people being waterboarded. The waterboard is basically where there's a plank that you lay on that's at, you know, your head is down here, your feet are up. They take water, they take like a rag and put it over your face and then pour water right here. So eventually you're going to, you know, have to take a breath. So when you take a breath, you know, you feel like you're drowning. So I watch people like completely freak out. I mean, it was like screaming. These are grown men, you know, like some of these guys were officers, you know, so it was pretty dramatic to watch that happening. And so I got chosen one night to go to the waterboard. So I was on the waterboard, and it's just like every situation I've been in, I'm just going to like relax through it and think through it, and we'll see what happens. You know, we'll see what happens. So, you know, tie me down, put the rag on my face, started pouring, just held my breath. They went to get more water, and I exhaled violently, and it created enough that I could suck air. I got a little water, but it's like, you know, having a regulator in my mouth, a leaky regulator. I was used to have a water in my mouth. So I just kept that up. They'd pour, they go to get more water. I would violently exhale, suck in real quick, and I get a little air. So it was good. I just kept it up. So they're like, you better start screaming or we're going to make it very bad for you. So I started screaming, and, you know, just to make a nice show. So later when all the training was over, it was like, you know, a class of like 150 people. A lot of these guys were air wing guys. When they get shot down, you get captured, stuff like that. But, you know, occasionally a SEAL will go through as well. So there's me and another SEAL in the class. So they're debriefing us, and they're like telling us all these different things that we'd gone through. And if we said this is what we mean. So blah, blah, blah. So who was the guy that broke the waterboard? So I'm like looking around, I'm like, who's that guy? I'd like to know who that guy is. And the guy in the front, he goes, one of you SEALs. So I looked over at my SEAL buddy. He looked at me. We're like both like, huh? Was it you? And he said, and they pointed at me. He goes, it was you. He says, you know, once every 10 years, you know, we've had, you know, tens of thousands of people go through. We have usually one guy that breaks the waterboard. So for like 10 years later, after that, all these guys who were in this class would come and introduce their wives and their friends to me. This is the guy that broke the waterboard. And I would like, oh God, you know, sorry, but you know, I can't really, you know, divulge, you know, what I do. So any kind of stressful situation that we get in, like we've been talking about, I think that if you approach it with, you know, okay, let's see what happens. And that's the way I've been with everything that's happened in my life in the combat situation, where life or death situations, I could go on and on with life or death situations, just many of them in my life.
How did you guys escape from being captive?
So this was kind of interesting. They also had a thing. They had a carrot where they said that if you, you know, go through this one field, it was like 2 miles of going through forest and mountainous terrain and stuff like that. And they said if you got to this one spot and gave this guy the password, you could get a sandwich, peanut butter jelly sandwich. So that was my motivator. So we have to find a motivator, something that motivates us. It could be as simple as a peanut butter and jelly sandwich. You know, I hadn't eaten in like, you know, a week, and here I am, Navy SEAL, you know, young guy. I'm like, my metabolism was like through the roof, and I'm like, you know, losing, you know, pounds every day. I think I lost 20 pounds in like, you know, this week-long course. So that motivated me. So something has to motivate you. So I crawled, you know, my knees were bloody. I crawled, and guys would come up. They'd like be standing, like I crawl into a bush, and the guy would come up, you know, like one of the people that are like hunting us, and stood like right next to my hand. My hand is like in the bush, and there's his foot right there. And I'm like, you know, very quiet. I'm invisible. And, you know, he walked away, but I made it to this place, and I gave it the password. I was the first one there. 3 or 4 guys come. We're all talking. Yeah, when are we going to get our peanut butter jelly sandwich? You know, we're all excited for that peanut butter jelly sandwich. And then we hear this truck drive up, and then they're shooting, and then they come in and grab us and put hoods on our faces and beat us and stuff like that. And they take us to this camp. The whole time I'm thinking, at some point they're going to give me that peanut butter jelly sandwich, you know. Still waiting for it. So we get to the interrogation place, and they're like, you know, yes, you guys are blah, you know, you guys are baby killers and blah, 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 and you're going to suffer. So I go into this little box where there's like a little piece of wood that I set on, and my hood's on, and they throw this, it's like a wooden box. They throw the cover down, and so I'm like, God, I'm not going to get my peanut butter jelly sandwich. So I had to have another motivator. So my next motivator was, I wonder if I can escape, you know, if I'll be able to escape through this. So I'm like looking around, I'm just finding, you know, where my escape was. And the motivator was to, if I can escape, I can help everybody else here. And it was the same thing with my businesses. It's like, why do I do business? It's because I want to help people. And I think that's the biggest motivator. As at some point, you know, when you're young, it's all about you. And then eventually when you expand, when you get a little bit more mature, you want to help other people. So helping other people, I think, is the ultimate motivator, and the thing that really pushed my skills to an incredible level and kept me going. So I did 24 years in the SEAL teams and 11 years in the CIA. The thing that kept me going was I'm helping other people, helping my country, helping other people, so forth. So
Awesome.
That's amazing. So essentially that's the same, really, visualizing, basically having sort of a visual cue to motivate you, really, to keep you targeted and driven.
Yeah, you know, finding those motivators in our lives, it's a goal. We talk about goals, but a goal doesn't really mean anything to me unless I have something where I'm going to, you know, expand myself so that I can help other people. Mm-hmm. So it's all about, okay, what can I learn that's going to help me to help other people? And that's the thing that keeps me motivated, keeps me moving, you know, keeps me going through all these challenges, all these death-defying things that I've done throughout time, you know, helping other people, staying alive so I could help other people.
Yeah, and I think like you're always going to be more, you're going to perform at a higher level when you have other people who are involved, when other people are depending on you, maybe your kids, maybe your family, maybe you know, some close friends. You're always going to over deliver when you're in that case.
Absolutely. So yeah, it could be your family, and then it could be your community, and then it could you know, be the world. So I got to the point where I was like, I'm always trying to help the world. You know, I'm going to these countries and helping fight terrorism, because terrorism is bad for the world.
I think you've already helped the world with everybody listening in on how to break the waterboard.
Yeah, so that's a technique. There you go. So people that get the waterboard from here on out are going to be able to break it. Yeah, we'll see. We'll see once you're in those stressful situations how you handle it. So yeah, but I've actually trained people how to overcome it, and they have. So it's kind of fun.
That's awesome.
Wow.
Awesome.
I mean, on that subject, I mean, overcoming the waterboard, do you have to be, I mean, because you're obviously SEAL trained, so you do the underwater, there's an exercise where they play with your mask and so on, isn't it? And then you do
they yank it out and stuff like that.
That's it.
Now, yeah, when I was a hard hat diver before I became a SEAL, and the hard hat diving training was even more intense than in the water aspect than the SEAL training was. So, so when I went through the SEAL training aspect of it, it was like so easy, because I'd had to do more intense things in the as a hard hat diver. So yeah, I've had a lot of experience. And when I was a little kid, I was just always I was a fish in the water. So that was, you know, I had that motivation. At I think 4 or 5 years old, I saw this movie called Frogman. It was an old World War II motivational, you know, movie to, you know, a recruiting movie. So I saw that movie and I was like, that's what I want to do. That's what I'm going to be. So, you know, for the next, 13 years until I was 18 when I joined the Navy, that was my motivation. So sometimes these things that we really, you know, focus on and want to materialize in our life take time. So we, you know, don't rush things is what I say. So, you know, the waterboard, you know, we're just gonna see how this works out. You know, my parachute doesn't open. Okay, what do I need to do? So I had the training, you know, pull the reserve, you know, do these movements and stuff like that. So, you know, you have all these different things that are going to hit you in life. And if you freak on it, like we talked about the fighters that are extremely well trained, And then something happens and they freak and they freeze up. That's what we have to learn how to overcome. So the waterboard, I mean, that's an extreme example, right? But I could tell you, like, where I was rolling down a street where people were trying to blow me up, and blasts were going off, and, you know, shells and stuff like that. People shooting at the car, and, you know, fortunately it was an armored car. So I was able to push through that. So but if I'd froze, then, you know, I wouldn't be here talking to you now. And a lot of these different things. And I've heard stories, and this was a thing that we taught in the hand-to-hand course that I taught. You have to overcome fear, because fear will shut down your mind. So if you have fear, your mind's gonna be shut down. And, you know, I would have been screaming on the waterboard instead of breaking the waterboard. I would have, like, maybe not pulled my parachute, because there have been instances where guys, you know, the chute didn't open and guys burned in. Yeah. And these are highly trained, you know, SEALs that have been trained, you know, what to do, but they freeze.
I would just go like Tom Cruise and jump on the next person closest to me.
Yeah, an extreme situation, you know. So we have these examples in movies, so why can't we do the same thing?
Yeah, in the real world.
You know,
Michael, I have a question. Like, as a trained SEAL, you could have written a book on basically anything, combat, something like you know, surviving
with the waterboard,
breaking a waterboard, right? What inspired you to write a book on intuition?
That's a great question. So again, what can I do? So throughout the SEAL teams, we're always trying to help each other. I would go to, like, shooting schools, or what we call breaching schools, where explosive, you know, learning how to, you know, blow open doors, and or whatever I learned, that I had more information than my comrades, my SEAL teammates. So I would come back and I would teach them. And the thing that I learned the most out of all of the SEAL training, being in combat zones, being in the CIA, protecting people, the thing that really opened up to me, that was the most valuable thing that I could share, was the intuition. So if I could share, you know, intuition with more people, how could I do that? And that's through, you know, the book, or speaking like we're doing right now. Lots of speaking engagements and stuff like that. So the intuition is the most valuable thing that anyone could learn to tap into, because it's the highest state of consciousness. Why would you want to stay down in the fear states of consciousness that restrict you and keep you from achieving things in life, or manifesting what you want to manifest in life? So why would you want to be in that state? So this talk of fear is a, you know, motivator, fear is the gift, and stuff like that, is crazy to me. So the intuition is fear is here. Intuition is like, I can't even go high enough. It's just a consciousness state, like this empty mind that we're talking about. So you go into this empty mind, and the intuitive thought, like, I'm in the waterboard, I'm in this empty mind state, and I'm like, blow out, suck in. You know, I mean, I watch people, like, suffer on that thing, and I was like, oh, here's my turn, I'm going to suffer. But I kept that open mind. I'm like, you know, just work through things. And that's the way I've been with challenges throughout my life. And if you have that kind of state of consciousness, this intuitive state of consciousness, you do amazing, miraculous things. I've done it and I've seen it. It's just unbelievable. And the martial world is what actually opened these abilities up for me. So I can't talk enough about martial training. So
let me ask you something. You know, people, I actually made a video on it. People ask me when they join my school, I give them a copy of my book, and they always ask me, like, how did you write such a good book? And the truth is, like, you know, it's not that I wrote it. It's just that, like, you tap in, and tell me if you had this experience.
Yes.
while writing the book. You tap into something wider, into that wisdom, that universal wisdom, and you just kind of channel the book, and you just write it.
Absolutely.
Have you had this feeling?
Yeah, absolutely. And that's when I read the book now, or people have read the book, have people that have read the book, you know, like dozens of times, and they're like, you know, send me passages that are in the book, because that was amazing what you wrote. And I'm like, I wrote that?
Did I? Yeah, exactly.
That is amazing. Yeah. So, but it wasn't me. I did not write that.
Yeah,
it came
exactly
through, like you're talking about. So I'm very humble on that book. I mean, it's still a good seller. It's been out for God, 8 years now. So it's amazing. You know, I have another book in the works that's basically a fiction type book. I think fiction is easier to convey this information, these thoughts, than you know, actual things. People, you know, look at me and say, "Oh, you're Navy SEAL. Of course you can do that stuff." It's like, not all Navy SEALs do this. You know, it's not a given. You don't just like show up and you get your intuitive badge. You know, so
Michael, have you mentioned the title of your book? Because you've mentioned it, but have you actually, for the viewers, really, you should really mention the title of your book.
yeah, it's The Intuitive Warrior. So it's something that, like we're talking about it, it's how can I share with people something that's going to, like, you know, really expand them and allow them to tap into the same things that you know help save my life and help save many lives over many years. So it's an intriguing work. It's still ongoing. I have another book that the Intuitive Warrior 2 that I'm getting ready to publish as well.
Cool.
So yeah,
Sounds brilliant. It really does.
Awesome. It makes me think of the Peaceful Warrior movie, Dan Millman's book.
yeah, that's a great series. I loved his work, and it's inspirational. It was inspirational work for me. Yeah.
Awesome. We'll definitely post a link in the description where people can order your book.
Thank you.
Yeah. And I think we're probably getting ready to wrap it up.
I think we should ask the audience if they've got any questions.
And Michael, what is the number one? Actually, before you ask the question, please share with everyone where can they get in touch with you and book you for speaking engagements, or you know, join your workshops, your seminars, or work with you personally.
As you come to my websites, unleashingintuition.com, and I have links there, and you contact me through that website and find out about my courses.
Awesome. We'll definitely post the links as well. And if you could ask our audience one question, what would that be?
I would ask, what is it that you think intuition is? And I get all these different answers for that. It's just amazing. And it kind of inspires me to, you know, relay this information in different ways. So when I have people come to my courses now, and I teach, you know, the 2-day intuition courses, it's amazing the amount of information that they're able to take in. It's like I'm like taking a fire hose and like just shoveling it into your, you know, information. But that's because I help them tap into that intuitive state. So the intuitive states allows this massive amount of information come in, and it'll take sometimes years to process, you know, what exactly they received. And I still have people coming back, you know, I used to teach courses over 10 years ago. And then I went into the CIA and started doing that, kind of fell off that a little bit. And then now I'm back in it again. So they're still coming back to me and are like, you know, your course, you know, changed my life, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, it wasn't really what I taught, is what, you know, I channeled to you. So it's a channeling process. You tap into something, like you said, that's greater. So being able to go into these higher states of consciousness and bring in this information and allow yourself to overcome, you know, obstacles, whatever they might be in their life. You want to be an EMT. You know, I've helped people become, you know, EMTs, their learning processes and stuff like that. So everything, it allows you to overcome any kind of obstacle and become, you know, the greatness that you can be. Everyone has greatness within them. And that's what I hope to achieve by, you know, relaying this intuitive work, helping people achieve greatness.
Absolutely. And we're happy to contribute to your journey.
It's absolutely amazing. I mean, I would strongly recommend anybody to follow this, because intuition and what you do, Michael, is absolutely brilliant. It really is. So, you know, anything we can do to help and promote it, we're only happy to do that.
Yeah. So guys, definitely get in touch with Michael. And if Michael saved your life, please get back in touch with us and tell us how much this podcast contributed to that as well.
Nice.
Awesome. Okay, Michael, thank you so much for your time.
All right. Thank you guys. It was a great conversation. I appreciate it.
You're welcome.